Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel and welcome back to our Queen's Gambit Decline series. So in this series we're covering this very nice opening from White's and from Black's perspective, and today we're continuing again with the Queen's Gambit Decline and the so-called Harrwitz Attack. So the Harrwitz Attack we have explained so far in 5 videos in the series. Today we're analyzing a different line of the Harrwitz Attack. Today we're analyzing the so-called fianchetto defense against the Harrwitz Attack. So it's a different approach of Black's. In my opinion it's still a good approach because there are great positional ideas here for Black. Black is trying to get a pawn majority attack on the queen side. Will come of course to the part where I explain you what I meant about it, what's the idea about this pawn majority attack. But as I said, today we're analyzing a different continuation. In the previous videos we have analyzed this continuation with the move c5, which was I think a more aggressive approach of Black's. Now we're analyzing a more positional approach with the move b6 and then maybe with some c5 preparation. So let's check out now the difference with a great game here played with the white pieces by the legendary magician from Riga, by the legendary Mikhail Tal against Boško Abramović. This game has been played in 1982, where maybe Mikhail Tal wasn't at his peak when it comes to his rating points and also his tactical skills, but still it was a very cool game here by the legendary player. Here I think you witness really first of all the most important strategical elements of the Harrwitz Attack, and then in the continuation of the game really the most often applied tactical elements of this very sharp opening. So let's check out now the game. Here d4 played by Mikhail Tal. We have d5 c4, we have e6, knight to f3, after move knight to f6 and knight to c3 we have now again the 3 knight variation, and after move bishop to e7 we have now the Harrwitz Attack move, which is of course the move bishop to f4. And as I said, here after castling in e3 we have analyzed these lines in my previous videos with the move c5. Now Black is playing a more positional approach with the move here b6. And what to do here? Obviously what Black wants to gain is here very powerful control of the c5 square. Wants now to play c5 again, because many times after move c5 when we have played an early c5, White's continuation was simply d takes c5. Now if for instance let's see, maybe here move rook to c1 or something, if c5 happens, then if you play d takes c5 then b takes c5 will happen. And I think Black is here a decent game because Black has connected now 3 pawns in the center, and now in the continuation of the game also d4 could be an opportunity. Really nice attack to gain some spaces in the center of the board. So that's why my recommendation after move b6 from White's perspective here, and I think that's the most popular line now in top grandmaster level, is simply to undermine the pressure and take out here with the move c takes d5. And of course there are only 2 choices here for Black. Black can play knight to d5, which is in my opinion more accurate. Knight to d5 is much better in my honest opinion, but we're analyzing first this continuation after move e takes d5. And after e takes d5 we have now reached a static center position. What I mean about the static center position is that these 2 pawns in the center are static, so you see they're heading against each other, and what we should always do in these types of structures are simply outposts. I've explained it many times in my videos, I've explained it many times in my strategy videos that we have covered here on my channel. When we have the static center, then the most important goal here is to create outposts. Outposts on e5 here from White's perspective, and from Black's perspective outposts for instance here on e4. Also Black could try maybe some outposts on c4. Of course on c5 White cannot create outposts because this square is covered by the b6 pawn. So here we're analyzing now the position from this point on. Of course what we should do now is normal development. When we play chess, of course it's important to include now all of our pieces into the game. So that's why here bishop to d3, and here after knight to f3, as I said, bishop to d3 would be the normal idea. Now with ideas to fix the position around the square e5, then to play queen to f3. That's I think now a very cool idea here of White's, because Black will continue the pressure with the normal c5 move, which is normal, which is I think a natural move. And now my recommendation is simply to go knight to e5 immediately. And you see now the tricky part of this opening, because Black would love to play this, as I said, pawn majority attack. pawn majority means that black wants to, after knight to e5, wants to play something like c4, then if you retreat, maybe then a6 and then b5, and will have a dominant position on the queen side. But actually c4 here in this particular position would be simply too rushed, because there are some tactics. Bishop to c4 is now an opportunity, because after d takes c4 you get queen to f3 and the rook is hanging. So that's, I think, a tactic that should be that you should be really familiar with when you're playing the game from white's perspective, because after move queen to f3 there's no good way anymore to protect the rook. I think from this point on white is simply winning. So that's why here after move knight to e5 in the game, Boško Abramović tried bishop to b7. We have now queen to f3, a very important move, because we are not allowing this outpost of blacks, because we have said at the beginning that the main strategical goal of this static center position, like we have here in the center, is to create outposts. So now with the move queen to f3, Mikhail Tal prevented this idea. The problem is again that maybe white is staying a little bit longer with the king in the center, but that's actually not such a huge problem, because the center is closed, the center is fixed, and there's no good way for black to open the files. There's no good way for black to open somehow the e file immediately. There's no good way for black to open the c file immediately, because if you're trying, of course, to open the c file after c takes d4 and e takes d4, we have now reached a new position in which black has lost, I think, this pawn majority attack. So that's why many times you see black is keeping the tension in the center, is not taking here in the center again, because black wants to keep, as I said, his 3 versus 2 situation on the queen side. So that's why you see simply this types of lines many times, because I'm not sure if the c takes d4 is working. I think it's a strategical disadvantage here for black. So after move queen to f3, you see all of the pieces of whites are good squares. That's why I don't like this idea after c takes d5 when black recaptures with the pawn. Now e takes knight to d5 I think would be more accurate. As I said, we'll also analyze this line in the continuation of the series. So after move queen to f3, here Boško Abramović challenged now Mikhail Tal's knight on e5, and here finally after castling, you see after a6 again black is trying to play this normal attack with a6 b5 and then finally c4. The problem is also this one, knight to e5 leads into a complicated line. After d takes e5, then knight to e8 has to be played, but now queen to h3 I think also is very interesting. Then you have to play something like g6, bishop to h6 could be an opportunity. So in this particular scenario I think white is much better, because in the continuation we can also play f4, even f5 is an opportunity to simply break and enter with all of the minor pieces into the game. So here after castling, as said, a6, Boško Abramović is trying to get the queenside attack with b5 c4, but here Mikhail Tal is simply much faster, because now there is a huge tactical problem. If you try something like b5, then you get this one. We can play knight takes d7. Queen takes d7 is not an opportunity, because you get checkmated, and now after move queen to d7 you get bishop to h7. If you take out with the knight gets deflected from the defense of the queen, so you're forced to play something like king to h8. But now with queen bishop to f5, simply the game is over, the queen is taken. So here after move queen to h3, you see now this was already a very interesting tactical idea here by Mikhail Tal. Now g6 has to be played, but now bishop to h6 with the move g6, black of course weaken the pawn structure, weaken the dark squares also in front of the king. So Mikhail Tal uses now this moment immediately and attacks simply the weaknesses in the position. So we have now rook to e8, we have now f4. This is now also a very important move, because we have said in the beginning, when our knight is fixed on e5, then we have to support it. This is now our main strategical advantage. I think this outposted knight around the square e5, so far a great positional game by the magician from Riga. So here bishop to d6, we have bishop to g5, because if you take here bishop takes e5, then you get of course f takes e5, and you see the knight is simply hanging. So that's why here in the continuation Boško Abramović tried bishop to e7, and now f5. Brilliant move again to simply include all of the pieces into the game, because now this rook has to be included here on the f file, and now we have a new clear target. It's of course the weak f7 square. If you take knight takes e5 again, it's not so good. We have here d takes e5. The problem is now white is simply much faster. All of these files will get opened. You have to play play something like maybe knight to e4, but then again I think simply bishop takes e4, we have d takes e4, and now even f6 e6 here is opportunity simply to create some madness. I think e6 is winning the game immediately, because after bishop to g5 you get with this one, we can play e takes f7, king to f7, then maybe queen to h7. You see this file gets open, so really wild stuff. Black is already in tactical problems. So here after move f5 in the continuation we have c takes d4 by Boško Abramović, but now again this idea f takes g6. The cool part about this game is that Mikhail Tal didn't retreat. Here in the continuation Boško Abramović tried knight to e5 to take out the knight. Even if you try here d takes c3, it's not such a good position, because you get this one, queen to h7 would be a brilliant move, and I'm sure of course that Mikhail Tal saw this move. Queen to h7 would be really a brutal and sick checkmate here. Here in the continuation knight to h7 has to be played, but then you get this one, g takes h7, you have to play king to g7, rook to f7, king to h8, and then knight to g6 would be a brilliant checkmate. So that's why after a move c takes d4, here in the continuation as said f takes g6. In the continuation we have knight takes e5, but now bishop to f6, pardon me. Here after move bishop to f6, it's obviously again a tactical problem, because after bishop to f6 the h7 is weak, so that's why here bishop to f6, but now queen to h7. We have king to f8, but now brilliant move again by Mikhail Tal, e takes d4. The problem is now the knight is of course the key defender of the f7 square, so that's why here knight to g6 was played by Boško Abramović. But again Mikhail Tal opened simply the files. He found really some great tactics, because now also the 7th rank gets cleared, and now also the bishop on b7 is hanging. So after f takes g6 we have rook to f3, rook to e6, and now rook to f1, building this battery. Here in the continuation we have rook to c8 by Boško Abramović, but now simple queen takes b7, and in this position black resigned. Whatever you do, the problem is the queen is always stuck here to the defense of the rook. Even if you try a counterattack, then you get this one, takes, the queen gets deflected, and then we can take out this one, and of course white is continuing the game with upper whole piece. Black is lost here. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. As a warm-up of our fianchetto defense against the Harrwitz Attack, I think this is a brilliant game. That's something that we'll use now as our cornerstone. We saw now what are the main positional and tactical problems, I think, of the fianchetto defense. We'll analyze the fianchetto defense more and more, because it's also a very often and very popular method how black counterattacks white's Harrwitz Attack. So as I said, in the continuation we'll see now many great games in this particular continuation. So okay, as I said, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you want to study the Queen's Gambit Decline more, check out my Queen's Gambit Decline series from the beginning with some more great games in the Harrwitz Attack. And if you have problems maybe to play as black, check out my commented chess games in some Nimzo Indian defense games, and also you can check out my hyper accelerated rank Sicilian defense as a good response to e4 and d4. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.